everyone, and welcome to the Icehouse podcast. Today I have with me Liz, who is a very familiar face. She has been at the Icehouse for 15 years. She is head of growth and also facilitates some of our programs, so a very familiar face. Thanks for joining us, Liz. Looking forward to chatting.
Me too, Bryar. Thank you.
No worries. We're going to kick into our quick-fire questions, which I like to do when we interview just one-on-one. And so our first one is, how do you take your coffee?
Americano, so black.
Nice, that's good. Morning or night person?
Definitely morning.
Yeah, I see that, I vibe that. Favorite meal?
Lobster, or in this country, crayfish.
Ah, nice. That's a surprise. I like that. Favorite place in the world?
That's a tough one. I have to really think about that because I've got quite a few, but I think I'd land on Long Beach Island, which is in New Jersey, and that's mostly because of memories.
Awesome. Yeah, that's cool. What about when you're not working, how do you like to spend your time?
With family and friends.
Great answer. And to spice it up, we've had some interesting answers here. What is your middle name?
Well, my middle name when I was born was Susan, but you may not know that Americans, when we get married, if we take our married name, we take our maiden name as our middle name. So mine is now Warren. So.
Wow, that actually, I learned that last week. That blows my mind. Like that it's just like there for a certain amount of time and then it just gets replaced. That is interesting. Okay, cool. Thanks for that. You aced the quick-fire questions. Now we'll jump into the good stuff.
They were the easy ones, I think.
Yeah, into the good stuff. We will start with walk us through your career to date and what you did before working at the Icehouse.
Okay, well, again, I think most of you know, I was born in New York City, so I went to university in Pennsylvania, and when I finished university, back to New York and started working in an advertising agency. I quickly decided that was definitely not my cup of tea, and for a number of different reasons. So left that and began my career at Columbia University, Graduate School of Business. Started as the editor of the Columbia Journal of World Business, worked in a research center capacity, and then moved into an executive education kind of role as Associate Director of Executive Education, which is what I did until I came to New Zealand. And left the university for what was supposed to be 2 years to come to New Zealand for what was supposed to be 2 years. And I've been here just over 30 now. So my first job in New Zealand was with Nathan Finance, which was a subdivision or a division of Ryan Nathan. That was a contract role in kind of a marketing capacity. Then I went on to work for New Zealand Institute of Management. And then from there went to Morgan & Banks, TMP, and ran the non-recruitment, part of that business, all of their HR consulting in Auckland, and then moved from there to work for Grafton Consulting Group, where I was their general manager, managing director, and a shareholder in that business until I came to Icehouse.
Wow, that is some awesome experience. And sort of along a similar industry and line, once you sort of decided education's where it's at, because even what you do now, facilitating the programs, is still very much in that focus, which is cool to hear. So when did you hear first of the Icehouse, and how did the opportunity to work at the Icehouse come along?
Well, funnily enough, Raywyn Goodwin, who was employee number 2 at the Icehouse, she and I worked together in a previous life. So she and I worked together at the New Zealand Institute of Management. So it was actually Raywyn who rang me one day and said, would I be interested in working with the Icehouse? Not in the role I'm currently in, but as part of the directing team who delivers on the Owner-Manager program. And I said I would be happy to consider that. And she put Deb Shepherd and Chris Woods in touch with me, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Wow, that is cool. Go Raywyn. What a legend. And you guys, Deb and Chris are still working together today, which is pretty amazing. Very cool. Why the Icehouse for you? What drew you to taking the role of head of growth, or to taking the facilitator role to start?
Well, as I say, I started on the directing team with Deb Shepherd for Owner Manager Program 8. That was in 2005. Absolutely loved it. Loved working with Deb. loved working, on the program and being kind of brought into that world, which I'll come back to later probably. And then about a year later, Andy Hamilton and David Irving, Andy, of course, the founding CEO, and David Irving, the founder and founding chair of the Icehouse, started to have a conversation with me about whether I would be interested in joining the Icehouse as the head of growth. And it was really appealing. But I was as I said before, I was then an owner and director and managing director of a consulting business. So I kind of thought, would I give that up? But they were pretty convincing. And so over time, I transitioned from being part of my time in Grafton and part of my time in the Icehouse to coming full-time into the Icehouse. And why? I've always been driven by purpose and meaning in what I do. And so the vision and purpose of the Icehouse organization was what really ultimately drew me to take the role. And I've never looked back.
Awesome, that's great. So true. You can't beat purpose in your work, that's for sure. What is your favorite aspect of your role? Probably similar to that.
Yeah, I mean, and there'll be people who might listen to this and have heard me say this before, but it is a privilege doing what we do, and it's a privilege because of what I do, and that's a combination of the role I play in leading the part of the Icehouse that's focused on established SMEs and Kiwi business owners, but also the role I play in terms of delivering on program to our target market. So I love what I do. I love who I do it for. Our customers are just, the most amazing people. And I love who I do it with. I think the Icehouse team is phenomenal. And so I don't think you can ask for much better in a job than loving what you do, loving who you do it for, and loving who you do it with.
Yeah, that sums it up perfectly. That's great. Next question is, what is the most common challenge you see an owner-manager facing?
Well, that's interesting. And I don't think it's changed much over the 20 years we've been doing what we do, but the 15 years I've been involved. I think that for most owner managers, the biggest challenge is time. And I'll come back to that. And probably a lot of it comes around people. And I say that because I think for owners and leaders in Kiwi owner managed businesses, the really difficult task of leadership is how they ensure that the organization raises its ability to handle growth as rapidly as it does its revenue line, so that the wheels don't come off and so that the growth is profitable and sustainable. And so for a lot of owners, that challenge becomes, being able to acknowledge where the business is at in terms of its growth journey, but also where they are at, and being really intentional and deliberate about the role they play. And, are they doing what they've always done, or are they doing what they should be doing? And doing the higher value adding activities, which means delegating so that they have time to do those things, and relying on others to be part of executing on the growth plan and the growth journey. So it's tough. It's the people thing, it's the time thing.
Yeah, and it'd be hard being an owner of a company, building something from scratch, working in it day in, day out, and then being able to delegate to other people to take responsibility. That is to allow time. That is a hard thing to actually do and implement.
And also, there's times, it's the cliche of, they need to work more on the business and less in it. And yet you need to understand that for some of, our owners, there's parts of what they do that they do because they love doing it. And so stopping doing that is challenging, but also, you're taking away some of the fun. So you kind of have to give them permission every once in a while to just do the stuff they love, even if that's in the business. But that has to be balanced with some other things that are important for them to do as owners, or if they're not going to do them, then someone else in the business needs to be doing them.
Yeah, it's finding that balance for sure. That's great. So from a facilitator, from the directing team point of view, what is your favorite part of the owner-manager program journey?
Well, I mean, I love watching them go on that journey. I love watching them come in as, strangers on block one, day one. Occasionally we get people who might know each other because New Zealand is a bit of a village, but most of them don't. And watching them build those relationships. And by the end of the program, it's as if they've known each other for a really long time. And it's incredible to me to watch those, those relationships develop to that level in such a short space of time. I think from the program, I guess two of my favorite days in the program are the days in block 3 and block 5, where we're in smaller groups and we're focused on, in block 3, the current state of the business. The idea being, let's not talk too much about growth until we're sure the foundation is solid. But it's the intimacy of getting into some really meaningful conversations in those discussions. And then in block 5, of course, we shift gears and we do start to look at at growth, if that's the right thing for them to be looking at. So those are probably my two favorite days. And when I'm on the directing team, my FOMO levels are high because I can only be with one group. And I'd love to be in each and every one of them. But yeah.
Yeah, true. And I guess getting into the nitty gritty in those conversations and being able to bounce off each other in smaller groups must be so valuable. That's great.
And it's the panelists, it's those of us, who are perceived to be experts that are, engaging in those conversations, but it's the degree to which they engage with each other with, real, genuine interest and wanting to give their thoughts and insights. So it's just the quality of conversations all around.
Yeah, that's great. That's so cool. What is a piece of advice you would give to a business owner looking to grow in 2021?
Wow.
It's a big one. Big question.
Yeah. I'm going to try and be really simple. And if you want me to go further, just ask me, Bryar. But, everyone knows that knowing stuff is really important to running a good business. But there's a few things that I think business owners need to, that are really important, or even more important now than they've ever been, around the things we need to know. And so those things to me are, we need to know and be really clear about what our purpose is, what our why is. Why do we matter? And what's the purpose of the organization? Not how do we do what we do, but why do we do it? Knowing what our strategy is then becomes really important. And that's got to be guided by knowing who our customers are, why they value us, why they choose to do business with us, where are they going, and how are we part of that journey? Knowing our people, and I mean really knowing our people. I don't think that has ever been more important, and I mean on a whole nother level than it mattered around knowing them before.
So true.
Knowing who our worthy rivals are, that's a Simon Sinek phrase, but who are our competitors that are worthy competitors, and how do we, what do we know about them? And, how does that make a difference to, the business? And then knowing our numbers. We've got to be across the numbers. And I'm not saying that, a business owner needs to be a financial whiz or read balance sheets for fun or anything, but they need to know enough about the numbers and what they mean so that they can make good decisions.
Yeah, that's absolute gold. Sums it up, covers everything across the board. Very great. Have to pop that in the show notes. But that's so good. How about this one? What is your opinion on the future landscape in a COVID world for small, medium-sized businesses? Another biggie.
Another biggie.
Yeah.
I just spent the first couple hours this morning from 7:30 to 9:30 on a quarterly briefing with Francis Valentine of Tech Future Labs, and boy, oh boy.
Awesome.
Incredible. And so I think, the concept of chronic uncertainty, that uncertainty, equals reality for us now. And so, if anyone's sitting back thinking, phew, I'm glad 2020 was behind us because now we can just get back to the way things were, they need to think again. And so I think that means that we just have to stay focused on the importance of keeping an eye on, on what's going on, and the insights that we're getting, and that means coming up out of our business, up out of our industry, and paying a close attention to the more macro environment that, that's all around us. And if the owner isn't, inclined to do that, then even if you're in a business of 10 people, somebody needs to be, doing that, and, figuring out, what they're seeing, and what they've noticed, and and maybe that even means a discipline in a business of getting everyone together every once in a while and just having that conversation. But and I think the other thing that we learned last year, that we carry into this year is, and in terms of that future landscape, is that concept of the Stockdale paradox, which came out of, it was Jim Collins' Good to Great, but which is the idea that we have to confront the brutal facts and yet at the same time have this unwavering faith that we're going to be okay. But that confronting brutal facts means doing really robust scenario planning, and I mean going out to the worst case, and working forward. And it just should be a discipline, not thinking that that's necessarily going to happen, but just understanding what it is.
Yeah, it must be so easy as a business owner to try block it out and just got to push through this season and then get back to normal, but it's so not the case. It's actually better to do that future planning.
Particularly given culturally, and I think it's a great culture, a great characteristic of New Zealand and New Zealanders, that she'll be right kind of attitude. But I think in this context, being a little bit more, forward thinking, and a little bit more, considerate of, what we're seeing and the insights we get from that.
Yeah, that's super important. Great. Okay, is there anything you took or learnt from 2020 that you're taking into 2021? A positive swing on 2020.
Definitely. I mean, I think personally, I was incredibly proud of us as an organization and the people in our team, in terms of just doing what we do, and just achieving, incredible things as a result of just, being bold, sticking to our knitting, and everything else. So I think resilience was incredibly important, and that was, the importance of that, and understanding ourselves, so individually, how we are, and how we're coping. But so resilience on an individual level as well as on a business level. What does it mean to be resilient, as a person and as a business? Again, kind of personally, the importance of being comfortable with ambiguity and complexity. And I guess for me, how do I continually develop that? Because sometimes it gets really hard, and fear is real. And so how do I and how do we just get more and more comfortable with being uncomfortable?
Totally.
And then I think a friend and one of our core delivery partners who delivers on our owner manager program, Brett Roberts, he kind of articulated something in an owner manager program session a month or so ago, and then we've been revisiting it in conversations. He calls it the 3 R's, but I think it's the concept of how as organizations or businesses, we ensure that we're relevant and we're responsive, and that's what will give us the resilience. So I think he says, responsive plus relevant equals resilient, and I think that's pretty on the money.
Yeah, that's brilliant. It's a great way to sum it up. Awesome. Thanks, Liz. Okay, last couple of questions. What does the future look like for the Icehouse? This question excites me.
It's exciting, Bryar. I think it's really exciting. I think we are staying very true to our purpose, which is, of course, to support and work with, on the Icehouse growth side, Kiwi business owners and their leaders and their teams and their businesses. So on the venture side, founders and investors. But so we're, continuing and staying true to that purpose. But we're continuing to be bold about the way we ensure that we're, future fit. I think this means that, we're just continuing to explore new ways of supporting, Kiwi business owners and Kiwi SMEs, addressing, in terms of how they address both opportunities and challenges.
Yeah.
Being real about both of those things in terms of what they're facing. And I think it means, that we're really focused on how we ensure that we evolve and help really shift the dial on the things that are critical for Kiwi businesses and ultimately for New Zealand. So I think it's exciting, and I'm, we have a, we're taking a kind of bold approach to what it is that we can do and how we do it.
Yeah, I love that. It's exciting to be part of something that's on the pulse of business in New Zealand and being bold in uncertain times as well, choosing to be bold, which is really great. Okay, a bit of a fun finish. Last question is, what is an interesting fact about you that not many people know?
Oh, now I'm going to have to preface that with something I might want people to know that they don't know.
Yeah. Go for it.
Well, let's see. Probably knowing me and knowing what a people person I am, it may come as a surprise that I left high school having been kind of academically quite far ahead in, advanced in math and science, which meant that my guidance counselors thought it would be a great idea because of that and because I was a female to go to engineering school.
Wow.
So I actually spent my first 2 years at university in engineering school studying to be a mechanical engineer. And then I woke up one day and thought, what does one of those do?
What do they actually do?
And when I started to find out, I thought, I'm not sure that's me. So in the US, when you're at university, you have to, you only have until the middle of your sophomore year to kind of finally declare your major. So it was almost as hard to get out of engineering school as it was to get in it, but I got out and I went into, a Bachelor of Arts in Science, and that's where the psychology thing took off.
Yeah, wow, that's good to know. You wake up one day and be like, hold on, this isn't actually me. I need to backtrack here a little bit. I think that's really cool. That is a great, interesting fact. Thank you so much, Liz. What a great podcast recording and so much content as well that people can actually implement after listening to this. So I really appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you, Brian. I hope it was useful.